Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to make a song from scratch using Sensory Percussion and Ableton Live 10. In this video I'm going to mostly focus on my creative process, and there's of course some technical stuff involved in using this technology, but that I'm not going to explain how everything works in this video. I'm just starting out with my Sensory Percussion plugin template. The very first thing I'm going to do is just get rid of channels I don't need. I actually don't even have 4 sensors set up right now, so I'm just going to delete drum 4 on the sensor input bus and for the MIDI output. And I'm leaving these deactivated for now, and everything's pretty blank otherwise. Cool. Alright, so to start out with, I've been keeping a folder on my desktop, things that I want to sample. These are things that I've come across and I'm like, ooh, that could be cool, and I want to explore that later. And I thought it would be cool to see what I could do with this sample of an acoustic guitar going through a Leslie. So I'm going to go ahead and just make this really short. And what I was thinking, is that this might actually be kind of cool to scrub. For a little chord progression, like back and forth, chord 1, chord 2 kind of thing, and we could replicate that really quickly. Oh wow, that's a lot of, these are all the MIDI inputs for kit switching with this template. 15 different kits, that is not going to be necessary, and these are in order, so I don't know, I'll probably not use any more than 3, so I'll just keep those first 3 and get rid of the rest. So to replicate that really quick, I'm just going to throw an LFO on start time, see what that sounds like. Okay, so that's pretty cool, and but I can already tell that the LFO is not going to work because I want it to hang out here for longer. I want it to hang out on this chord and this chord for longer, and this is interesting, but it's kind of crazy sounding. So I'm going to go ahead and make a move over to Ableton, and I'm just going to grab that same file. One thing I can do, so in Sensory I normalized it, but this is such a dynamic sample that I'm going to actually want to take it a step further, I think, and compress it. If we were going to keep this as like an audio or an acoustic guitar stem, that would be way too squashed, even for a modern standard probably, but because we're using this as a sample, I think that's actually going to be really functional. So I'm just going to go ahead and resample that into another track. Cool. So since I'm envisioning automating the start time in some pretty specific ways to hang out on this sample and then hang out on this sample, I'm going to go ahead and put this on a sampler in Sensory Percussion just to make it more efficient to automate things. Cool, something like that will work. So let's go ahead and create that automation. Select this parameter that I want to create an envelope for, go into this clip, and let's just make it 8 bars. And we'll start with the first 4 bars on that first chord, maybe with some slight variation. I don't know if that's too much or something we'll see. And then pretty quickly go towards the end. I don't know, maybe there. Let's run it and see what happens. Cool. So I think I could go a little further with this subtle motion at the top, and then I need to start further back here. And not go all the way to the end of the sample. That was kind of cool what happened right here with that other passing chord thing. So for general feel, I do have this kick sample already loaded up. I cheated. So I was kind of feeling this 3/4 ostinato kind of thing, so I'm just going to go ahead and tap that in. Let's call it 90. And change it to 3/4. And I made a rookie mistake, and I made this clip in the wrong time signature, but we can change that. It'll be alright. We can just eyeball it. Well. Sketchy. Let's see what happens. Nice. It's working pretty well. It's feeling pretty thin, which isn't necessarily a problem, but I'm just going to beef it up. A little mojo. I think that's in the ballpark. Could probably do some more, but let's move on so we can keep our momentum. I don't want to spend too much time on this one element because I need some context to be able to make better decisions or to decide if this is even a good idea. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in something else. I've been really wanting to check out this Max for Live mono sequencer. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this out, and I don't want two versions of this sampler. So now I can put my mono sequencer in here. And let's just put operator on it because I know and love operator. So if I run the project that is, this is the sequence that will run as long as the project's running. And I can enable this transpose and gate, which then means that the sequence will only run when it receives a MIDI note on this channel, which, if we look at our chain, is the MIDI from drum 2. And the transport does have to be running. Nice. That's cool. If I click this MIDI button, it'll automatically make everything reset with every incoming MIDI note. That's pretty cool because I have this transpose and gate enabled. The transpose part means that the pitch of the MIDI note coming in is going to transpose this whole sequence. So if I just get rid of the guitar sample for now, I should label these while I still know what they are. So my MIDI note in Sensory Percussion is drum 2, center is C2, and then the rim is F2, so it'll transpose up a fourth. And maybe I should give this sound a little bit of love. Cool. So this is a great starting point. We got a lot of cool stuff going on. Let's go ahead and shape this so that these elements we have already come in gradually and seamlessly. So for now, let's just work with the guitar sample. Something that could be kind of fun is to start with the decay time really short and then automate it to come in gradually. So we start out with just clicks. So I selected that parameter and I can just go into this clip and create the automation I seek. I think I was around, I don't know, 500 milliseconds, 400, we'll see. And so that this doesn't repeat, I'm going to go ahead and unlink it and turn loop off. It might be nice to go through that chord progression twice, even though we can't really hear it until later. It just seems like a nice amount of time for form's sake. Awesome. I did feel kind of bored with it somewhere around here, so maybe what I'm going to do is make this 12 bars and then have it reach this point here, and so it doesn't rush into it, I can curve it just a tiny bit. Go extreme at the very, very beginning. Probably won't even play then anyway. But I kind of like the idea of it landing on the one chord, or the first chord of that guitar sample here-ish. So I think what I need to do is just go into this other envelope and make the start time offset by 4 bars. So now it'll start here, but then loop the 8 bars from there. Let's see what happens there. Nice. That's cool. And at that point we should have been through our decay time, and I did feel like it was a little too fast still, so maybe I'll do something like this. I don't know, that might be cool. I can massage this later, but I think the core idea is there. My computer was glitching out, probably just because I'm trying to make this movie at the same time, but I'm going to go ahead and kick this back just so it doesn't sound like. That's a cool way to bring in that guitar element. With this element, as it stands, that's just going to be going nuts, even at the very beginning, completely overshadowing all of that really delicate automation we just did. So I think for that whole intro section, we don't need this instrument at all. And that's where the chain selector is going to help us out. So what I can do is create something like this. And now with the chain selector at 0, all we hear is guitar. And then if I go to 2, all we hear is the mono sequencer operator. And then if I go to 1, we can hear both. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new clip for a new scene. We'll call this intro. These are just called on because it's part of my template, and these would turn everything in the track off. That's another tutorial. So this one we can bring in the mono sequencer. So all I have to do to make that happen is just automate this chain selector. So make sure that clip is just the guitar, and then on this one we want it to be 1. So to reiterate, intro, clip, chain selector on 0, we can check that out. The guitar should be coming in. Nice. And then whenever I go to this next clip, we got our mono sequence and the guitar. Just to ensure that let's just go ahead and make sure that this decay time is in a good zone, because I just copied this clip over, which we really don't need it to ramp back down. I was kind of just thinking it would stay where it was, so I could just do that. Quick and dirty, leave it where we left it. I feel like I'm actually going to not want that guitar to play on the rim, and that is happening because I have it parsed so that it receives MIDI notes from the whole octave of C2. So I could just get rid of that. I think it would be rad for this to, instead of just coming out of the gate right at when we go to this clip, I think it would be cool to have it just play one note and then gradually introduce more notes. And I don't think we can sequence that. Let's see what parameters we have on the mono sequencer. Ooh, swing amount could be cool to use later. Okay, there's lots of great stuff in here, but it doesn't look like we can change the length. But that's okay, because we have this transpose and gate mode enabled. Gate is basically just the length of the MIDI note that we have coming in. So we can see that over here. Got 810 milliseconds. That's just 5 notes. That's perfect. We'll probably want to remember that 810. If I make it shorter, we get less notes. That's fun. Go back to 810. Actually, that probably doesn't matter because we could modulate that with a controller or even an external controller. I think it might actually just be easier to sort of override those MIDI notes with a MIDI note length effect. And then this is going to be super easy to automate. That's really interesting to note that the sequence only launches on a 16th note partial, and depending on how accurate I am, it might not happen at all, because if I'm a little late, 148 milliseconds is apparently not a 16th note at 90. So if I play just slightly ahead, it'll work. Maybe 195 is better, because I'm okay with it happening later. The sequence can't go back in time. That's cool. Even 2 notes is fine. It's just I wanted to make this less intense coming out of the gate. So let's go ahead and sequence this note length parameter. And maybe we'll go ahead and unlink this, and I don't know, I guess the 8 bars is good to start out with, and we want to go up to that 810 magic number. Alright, and if I leave this, if I have this unlinked envelope, not loop, it'll just stay at 810. So let's see what that feels like. That was awesome. That felt a lot more, that felt a lot better. I think I could actually stand for it to be even longer. That 12 thing seemed to work really nicely for us. That's 11, not 12, but it's fine. I could even go down a little further, so it's like sometimes we won't even hear it at all. That was cool. Go further. I think this sequence opening up thing could be complemented nicely with some timbral changes as well. I think that would be a nice thing to bring in, the second operator level, and then maybe this would be cool too. Yeah, that'll be sweet. So because I'm thinking of modulating both of these parameters at the same time, I'm going to go ahead and create a macro by grouping. Whoops. That frequency, I think I only went up to 7. And then maybe the output level, that minus 21. We'll make it minus 19 or something. I think that'll be nice. Cool. So we should have a pretty nice wide range parameter macro. And now I'm just going to automate this macro in the same way. Maybe for kicks, we'll unlink this as well and make this one 16 measures long. And we can sweep the full range of that macro in 16 measures. Alright, let's see what this sounds like. Awesome. So let's slow down on the structure development and think about expressivity for a second. The question to pose to yourself is, what elements or parameters in this composition could I control in the moment to add life to this whole thing? You don't have to modulate everything, but just a few key choices could make this thing really pop out in a nice way. So I just remembered that modulating the swing amount could be pretty sweet. 0 swing is straight, I guess, and 50 would be, I don't know, triplet? Yeah, probably, I guess. And then, yeah, and then we go over the triplet. So I'm just thinking like wiggling it between 0 and like 15%, something really subtle would make it hop off the grid, and let's just control that with velocity. I think that would be intuitive. I'm just going to throw a max API control MIDI CC device on here, and I need to set this up. I have no controllers yet. That changes now. CC1, we're gonna, what did I say, velocity. Let's just use the whole kit. That's fine. 0 to 127. And then with the API control MIDI CC device, I just have to select the correct control CC number, turn it on, and then just do a little map. There it is. Cool. I'm going to change this update rate to be faster. So that's way too much swing. So if I play soft, it's pretty darn straight. And when I play hard, it just has a little lilt to it. Let's try playing the beat. That a lot. Very subtle, but I think it makes a huge difference, and that doesn't feel like we're just restarting a sequence and over and over again like we are, because we're interacting with it in a meaningful way. So let's interact with the timbre of this sound too. Controlling the brightness of it would be an obvious thing to do, and we were already doing that a little bit with this second operator level. And I really like the tone control. It has to do with like aliasing or something. Let's see. Yeah, aliasing artifacts. Controls the high frequency content. So it's like a specialized filter, I guess. So let's control that. Just a little bit. And I'll go ahead and put it in a macro just for nice organization, so we don't get our virtual wires all crossed. And I think I don't want to go too far down, because I don't want to like low pass it. I just want to interact with those aliases. And let's go ahead and control that with something. Oh, I don't know. Use a different CC. And let's set up a controller for CC2. I think a speed controller could be nice with this. So something like that. And got that set up already. It's already updating. Let's see what that sounds like. That's pretty darn subtle. I like it, but maybe we should be coming down a tiny bit more. I think that's good. And then I'm also wondering about the envelope of this sound. Maybe I'll control that attack time with the same macro. That's pretty cool. I think the range is going a little too far. 20 seconds, yeah, that's probably too far. Let's see if that helps. Nice. Before I get too carried away, I'm going to go ahead and label these. I mean, you can tell what they're hooked up to here, but just so it's quicker on the eye to see what's going on, I'm just going to relabel this velocity to swing and speed to timbre. So you can just fold these up, but I find that's really hard to read. So my preference would be to just group these, and then I can just call this controller mappings. And that's much smaller, it makes my chain a little easier to navigate, although this is pretty big. Okay, it's a new day, I have fresh ears, and I just opened this up and went through what I did yesterday to refresh myself. And before I started filming, I did a couple things. I got kind of tired of this chopped acoustic guitar sample feeling because it wasn't really fitting the minimalist aesthetic, but the timbre is really cool. So I just put this echo on it, which is great sounding. That allows us to use the timbre, but the ostinato of these different delay times fits more of the vibe I think the rest of this composition is heading towards. And putting reverb on it kind of obscures or creates distance from the actual rhythm I'm playing, especially with these buzzes. That's kind of glitchy, which is great, I love that aesthetic, but I think that's going to fit the rest of the vibe we're going for. Oh, and I put this clap on the rim. That's the only other thing I did since yesterday. Okay, so what now? To keep momentum, I'm gonna just go ahead and move forward and create something new, or something that's gonna happen next. And I can always circle back and make changes to this, even like I did just now. So I stumbled across this sample the other day from a old project of just some like modular morphogene stuff. It's kind of this cool, like almost industrial sound, especially transposed down that far. Let's put it up. Just gonna make this kind of aggressive. Pushing that delay time, or putting that start time back so it kind of swells into whatever that is. This feels like pumping. Since we're having some gain issues, I'm just going to go ahead and compress this, or maybe even just throw a limiter on it. For dynamic's sake, this is not great. I'm going to squash it so it still has some headroom for mixing later, but not so much that we lose that pumping feeling. I'm thinking that these don't even necessarily need to overlap or happen at the same time, because this is going to be like kind of a hard scene change. So I'm going to put the chain selector to start on 3, which is its own new thing. Make a new clip. Automate the chain selector to 3. So we have all this old stuff on this scene, and then we go to the bass. Oh yeah. So these other sounds I parsed out so they only happen on this snare drum. But I kind of like having this on the kick and snare. It sort of takes over everything. I'm thinking about changing that MIDI note on the rim to just be another octave higher, and that does mess up my whole convention of keeping one MIDI note per octave, but I think it's gonna be okay. We'll fix that if it becomes necessary. I'm kind of envisioning this as like a hard break from all the motion that we built up before, and so maybe I could see this becoming like intro and this scene sort of building it all up and then pulling the rug out with this like almost breakdown kind of thing with this overpowering bass moment, and then maybe we go back. So maybe we could leave this as is, and maybe this will only be 4 or 8 measures long, and then we go right back to what we had before, except we had done this whole nifty thing of opening up the sequence by modulating the note length, which I don't think I want to do this time. Yeah, there it is. So I'm gonna just, let's see, where does it end? 8:10. Let's just leave it somewhere around there, and we can shape something else. Sweet. I'm thinking that maybe we needed some other element to come in now, since we're not going to open up that sequence with the mono sequencer again. I think we could just add another layer. So this is Legato Gelato, which is a Max for Live device that I made, and it's great for sort of playing runs really quickly. What I'm thinking is this could be a nice pad underneath with some kind of interesting motion by sweeping this harmonic series, which is really just transposing the oscillator. It's not like actually going through harmonics of the timbre. But in order to use this, we need a MIDI clip to send MIDI into Legato Gelato. Send MIDI out to Legato Gelato. For now, I'm just going to use my computer keyboard. Let's smooth it. I guess now is the time when I finally figure out what key I'm in. So, I'm just going to go ahead and create a clip. Rock A. So I do need to figure out how to get all of these to happen, because with this current setup I have the guitar sample, the mono sequence, and Legato Gelato need to happen at the same time. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do, I had set this up initially so that I could have the option of playing the mono operator by itself or at the same time as the guitar, and I think I'm just going to give that up so that I don't have to redo my chain selector automation to go to the take over everything bass sample. So if I select 0, 1, 2, then I can get all 3. I think I actually do want a little bit more going on. This is the Legato Gelato, makes for a cool kind of edge to this bass line that we've created, but I think it might benefit from a little more support, even just a really simple tone like a sine wave or something. So what I'm going to do to get that same MIDI in is use my MIDI sample and hold devices, and I can use the same, just put that on there too to send it into the MIDI sample and hold world, and then all I have to do is just put this pitch in here. And since I already have, this is just a layer, since I'm layering it with Legato Gelato, which has plenty of edge to it already, I don't really need to make this too wild sounding. This might also be a nice time to bring in some more drum layers. I do already have a kick going. I might want to add another layer. How many of you guys also just by default go into this 80s drum machine since it's at the top? But you know what? These sounds rule. That click might actually be kind of nice on that one. Like the glitchiness of the buzzes with that bass line going do do do. I think it could be nice to take it somewhere new. I kind of want to hear it go A G F. So let's just try seeing. Let's just take that there and see what that sounds like. Clearly, we need to transpose some stuff. You know what? I'm going to scrap this because that's going to be a pain. I like how that sounds, but it's going to be a pain to automate both the offset and the depth to bring this effect in and out. I might actually just go for the echo trick. What would it sound like to just transition straight back to that crazy bassiness? From here. Wow. Come back to this. Okay, so I played this through, and I'm going to spare you watching me stumble through it and just barely verbalizing my gripes about how it went and sighing a lot and stuff. Composing is not a direct line from start to finish, at least for me. And there's likely going to be plenty of missteps, but that's okay. I just took a break and came back and steered things a bit. The main thing I'm going to do is I'm going to totally ditch this section because I felt like it wasn't really adding anything. This part where I go to some new chords, I gave it a little bit of love. I added some new, I changed the chords a bit, and I added some fancy MIDI effects to get this really arpeggiating all over the place. And this really makes Legato Gelato shine. So if I run this, I just soloed Legato Gelato here. And if I pull up these MIDI effects, you can see what's happening. This is what I made Legato Gelato for. To make that bass part a little more engaging, I took advantage of my CC to pitch bend object, and I used a controller, an envelope controller, envelope from Sensory Percussion, just to do some pitch bend for us via C3, CC3. So when I hit my snare, you can see it changing the pitch right there. So I did some other things to clean up a little bit, like I added this choke group, Max for Live device, just so that when I accidentally trigger the note like I just did, and I I could either hit this button to choke, or if I'm going to the next scene, for instance from here, I sequenced it to choke it as soon as we go to the new scene. I really like the feeling of this intro, kind of bringing things in smoothly, and then this like kind of climax, exciting new chord section. That feels really good, and then switching, like pulling the rug out with this bass drop is very satisfying as well. So I think I've pretty much said what I wanted to say as far as a composition goes. But to kind of tie it up, I think what I'm going to do is sort of reverse engineer this intro to bring it back home. So it's so almost vaguely A, B, A. So just copying that over, and let's see what we're working with here. So I think I definitely do want to choke that bass sound so that we can make a smoother transition. So I'll just select that and then have it turn on right at the beginning. I think what I'm going to do is do the opposite of what I did with unfolding the sequence with this note length object. And I like it coming out of the gate a little sparse, but I think I want to start a little fuller and then go down from there. Sparseness. See how that sounds. Maybe a little fuller than that. I like how the way it ends there, we just hear that sequence a little bit here and there, but really not that much. To fully wrap it up, the other thing I did in this intro was I opened up the decay time on that choppy guitar sample, which we could watch happen here. So it starts around 12, and then it goes up to something. And I think we want this to carry us out a little bit further, so maybe it won't start decaying until here. Let's see how this wraps things up for us. That was fun. I think we're in a pretty good spot with this whole thing, and I didn't even end up using drum 3. I don't know, maybe I will later, but I think the next step, well, first we need to set up our scene switching, and then after that I'm just going to record this and come back to it another day to listen to it and tinker with it purely from a production mindset and see if there's anything that's missing and maybe get the mix under control. So this is the track I'm going to use for scene switching, and in my template, if I go into Midi Mapping, the only things I have mapped are the scene switches, which are using these hidden buttons down here. Okay, cool. Got that all set up. I'm going to trust that that's going to work. And let's go ahead and set up some multi-tracking for this. I already have these drum outputs set up. We have kick and snare. We don't have anything else right now. I don't even have drum 4 connected right now. I might use drum 3 later, but we're going to save that for another day. Have those record enabled, and so the only other things going on are, wow, I put everything in this one track. That's interesting. The idea of this setup is to have a separate MIDI track for each drum, so you can keep it more organized. You can keep it equal parts, like kind of laterally organized and then vertically organized, and racks and each channel. But because I'm just using one drum, a little bit of a low-key setup, it's all right. We're gonna make it work. So the nice thing about using racks and Ableton for multi-tracking is that it's pretty easy to multi-track out of it, because I can get each one of these instruments in the chain on its own track. Like I can get guitar right here, the mono sequence right here, the super bassy thing, Legato Gelato, and operator, and that's everything going on in this song. Sweet. So record, enable these. Now let's go ahead and record this. I'm just recording audio. I mean, you know, if this is good, I could just mix it and put it out, but I think I'm going to use this for the purpose of kind of massaging things, getting the levels right, and then adjusting those in the clips. I don't really feel like it has to be perfect for a live performance, but at least like in the ballpark to, you know, serve the composition well is really all we're after right here, and to see if there's any other elements that are missing or obviously distracting, that kind of thing. Alright, let's record this.